information to all of you. Because the idea is that in our society and with the first contact specialists, there is an allowance of communicating in a certain way with a society, with a civilization that is based on the cycle within that civilization that represents a complete transformational cycle based on the timing of that civilization and the consciousness of that civilization. For your civilization, as we have talked about this in the past, the cycle of your societal transformation is 40 years. You see this mentioned sometimes in a variety of ways within some of your ancient literature, so on and so forth. You know, things like 40 years in the desert, so on and so forth. That's the amount of time it takes for a real complete transformation of human society from one level to another. Therefore, the end of your year of 2023 will be the end of 40 years of us channeling in this way to your civilization. After that, the way in which we deliver information to you will change, because it will be now more keyed and more focused on the idea of really taking the time to prepare you for the beginning of the window of open contact. So there are 3 of your years remaining for the kind of information we're delivering now that gives you the opportunity to change yourselves, to change how you experience your reality, to apply the formula, the instruction manual in your lives in a way that will truly prepare you for the change to come at the end of your year of 2023, to absorb information in a different way from us for the purpose of really strengthening and increasing the probability of open contact for those who wish to align with that energy.
Okay. You've talked about the COVID pandemic having been extended due to our behavior, having
choices, yes,
choices, right? So since our beliefs create our reality, and what we are seeing is actually other versions of reality being seen through a glass wall, how can our behavior be a factor?
Your behavior determines what side of the wall you're actually on. Because remember, action is the language of physical reality. And therefore, if you say you are of a certain frequency, but are not necessarily acting like you're of that frequency, then you may be on the other side of the wall. Plus, it's important to realize that many people, while they may wish to be on one side or the other, aren't necessarily as clear within themselves about what their true beliefs and fears are that may put them on one side or the other that they may not even realize they're in. So it's very important to be very clear about the idea of your belief systems, what you truly believe, not wish you believed, but truly know to be true for you, and how your actions might align with that. Because sometimes things that may seem to be representative of what you don't prefer may actually be the path of least resistance for you if you're honest about what you really believe is possible for you to experience when you observe what other people may also be choosing. You have to be really clear that you either are or not a part of something, are or not in alignment with a consensus belief system. But sometimes just going with a consensus is actually not only the path of least resistance for you, but acts as an example to others to allow them to also be true and in alignment with the path of least resistance for them that may be true for the collective society that you've agreed to be a part of. So you have to have real deep, honest self-examination and investigation as to what's really true for you to really know for certain what side of that glass barrier you're actually on.
And just from a foundational perspective, the side of the glass wall that most of us are at least moving in the direction of through our attention is the idea that how do you think of other people and how your behavior affects other people? Like, what's your foundation?
Yes, because again, the idea is that if you recognize there are people on one side that are part of the consensus reality where a certain behavior would actually be best for them, by countermanding that on your side of the glass wall, because they can still see you, you may be sending them a signal that they don't necessarily have to choose what it is they're choosing on their side, And thus you may be sending them an image that actually would be detrimental for them were they to mimic your behavior on your side. So it's not just about the idea of you, it's about the idea of you still realizing that people can see you through the glass wall just like you can see them. And by taking the actions that are most representative of what is also in best service to them is also part of the idea.
Right, and it's just a basic position of not harming others, correct?
Basically, yes. The idea of doing what is in the best interest of all and understanding what kind of an example you set for those that may not necessarily be as clear as you are about what it is you prefer to be true, so that you at least give them the best opportunity to get through an experience in a way that you know might actually be of service to them, because you can recognize from your position on one side of the wall what position they have chosen on their side of the wall, and are helping them to choose the path of least resistance that actually works for them. But again, all of this takes a lot of clarity, a lot of discernment about what is appropriate, because sometimes you can give them a different image to encourage them to also perhaps match the frequency on your side of the wall. But at the same time, you have to also know that not many people on your planet are capable of understanding how to do that. Therefore, it's like teaching a child to say, all right, well, this is the behavior that you need to exhibit now because I understand the limits of your belief system, and I will help you with that by being an example of the behavior that you need to exhibit. At the same time, I will encourage you to understand how to change your belief system so that you don't necessarily have to exhibit that particular behavior if it's really not in your best interests ultimately as you mature. So it takes a great deal of maturity and a great deal of discernment to understand how to orchestrate the living example that you choose to be to others, to help them in the best way, to be of service to them in the best way, to allow them to go through the eye of the needle in the most effortless way.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Because of parallel realities and the amount of people that believe the virus was man-made, does that also mean that there's a parallel reality where the virus was man-made, and then another parallel reality where it was created from the destruction of ecological systems?
And anything in between. Yes, all those parallel realities exist. But this is what we're going to say about that. It doesn't matter. Because the idea, whether or not you want to say that the virus was man-made, or whether the virus is simply an opportunistic organism that was created or at least was unleashed because of the damage done to the environment, what's the difference in terms of human responsibility? None. So the idea is to simply focus on the idea of taking more responsibility for the choices that are made, because whether or not the destruction of your environment unleashed the virus, or whether or not it was man-made and was accidentally or purposely unleashed, matters not when you understand that the bottom line to all of those scenarios is to take responsibility for the idea of the acceleration of the virus, since it is still connected in some way, shape, or form to the choices that humanity has made. Therefore, by taking some responsibility in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't matter what the real origin is. It matters that you understand how to take responsibility and how to make different choices by learning the lessons that you learn by taking responsibility and having a different reality, because you then choose to do things differently than you have done before. No matter what course was taken, it still ends up being the same understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
One individual is saying, I'm confused about the real difference between choosing the reality we want and denying what is. They are paradoxically opposed. For instance, in subjects concerning evil forces on Earth and beyond, how can we really choose what we want without being in denial of what is?
All right. Well, first of all, the opposition that you're sensing is because of the terminologies that you're choosing to identify these things with. It's not about what you want, it's about what you need, first of all. And you're not denying the present by preferring a different reality. The only way you can actually experience a preferential reality is not by denying what is, but by using it in the most creative and positive way. That's why it's so important in the formula, in the fourth step, to stay in a positive state, even if what manifests is something you don't prefer. Because only by staying in a positive state will you be capable of getting a benefit from it, of learning a lesson from it, and letting it go away because you've used it up for the purpose it was there. Because you have to know that even if something manifests you don't prefer, it's got to be there for a reason that could serve you. Only by staying in a positive state will you figure out how it can be serving you. By going into a fear-based state and denying what's happening in the present, it can't serve you, and you only get, quote unquote, stuck in the negative spiral, thinking that it doesn't belong there when in fact it does, for some reason. But you get to determine what that reason is, positively or negatively. So it's not about wanting a different reality, although preference can come into it, but preference is a non-judgmental neutral state. It's simply a recognition of what is and isn't vibrationally compatible with you. So drop the wanting, because wanting is often the product of the negative ego, thinking it knows best what the outcome should look like when it absolutely has no clue whatsoever most of the time. But if you understand how to focus on getting what you need in life that comes to you will always fulfill you and always propel you in the direction of the preferred reality. So it's about living in the moment, not denying what's happening, but using what's happening to springboard yourself toward the direction of a more positive preferred reality. That's how those two things are connected. But when you say things like wanting and denying, you're creating the dichotomy, you're creating the polarization in the definitions that you're using.
So this idea that you're looking at something through a glass wall, and at the same time you're using what you're seeing through the glass wall to impact your current behavior.
Yes, you're making choices based on what you do and don't prefer, based on what you're seeing others choose.
So where is the line between denial and something else? Because denial would take you out of a higher frequency, right?
Yes, and that's what we're saying. If you're in denial about what's happening, you can't use it to your benefit. Therefore, by not being in denial and accepting that what's happening is happening, again, doesn't mean you endorse it, doesn't mean you condone it, doesn't mean that you're vibrationally compatible with something you don't prefer. But you have to understand that what you're experiencing and what you're observing is there for a reason that can serve you. So it's not about denying what you're seeing, it's about using what you're seeing in a positive way to propel you, by contrast, in a direction that you prefer that is different than what you're seeing. That's how you use it and propel yourself in the direction of the reality that you prefer, not want.
Okay. Another individual wrote, I've been going into deep meditation, visualizing planet Earth as already healed in the present, with nature thriving. I've tried to visualize a loving, abundant energy on the planet and a light aura surrounding it. Does this visualization create a speeding up of the vibration, the positive vibration on the planet, and help to heal the planet? Is it purposeful and useful to do this?
Yes, because the idea of being in that state, the state that that kind of visualization puts you in, can make you, if you choose to match that state in your physical actions, will make you a living example, an active, living example to others that they can choose to be in that state too. But the idea is that you have to match what you're visualizing and the energy state that it puts you in with actual physical actions that go along with that, or you're not going to be speaking the language of physical reality to anyone else. They won't see you as a living example if your actions don't match the vibration of your visualization.
Okay, thank you. And
Yes.
our last question is, there are more than 7 billion people on Earth and only a small percentage that are aware of Bashar.
Yes.
Is there anything special that relates to all the people that listen to or know Bashar?
For the most part, with very, very few exceptions, those that find our particular vibration and delivery of information, most likely, and it doesn't mean we're the only one, but most likely will have some connection to the hybridization agenda.
Thank you, Bashar. Thank you, Tadeo. Really enjoyed our communication, and I'm sure thank you from everybody else who's been listening.
Thank you, Nania. Now please enjoy the remainder of the transmission.